So I want to go through this, and this is my trial run on this, so you get to respond to this, and I am not locked into anything, but I'm so excited about what we have sort of come up with here. Me, whoever else has ever influenced my life, okay? To define it briefly, it's our inner capacity to connect with the invisible realm that lies beyond what we can experience using our 5 physical senses. I would call it the ability to connect with the intangible world versus the tangible world that we connect with every day with our sight, vision, hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, touching. These are our physical senses that we interpret the physical world with. But we have this 6th sense that allows us to connect with the invisible realm. Okay, it is unique and personal to each one of us, but the vast invisible resource that we tap with it is the same for all of us. We share it with every other person on this planet. We can block it or deny it, this 6th sense, but it is ever present and it cannot be destroyed. Therefore, through it, we are connected to its source, which many of us call God, and everyone who lives now or whoever has lived. I've had a real struggle with this whole thing, with trying to write a book like I've done, and realize that we have atheists, people on one side who don't believe anything about God, and on the other side we have people who believe in God, but who have possibly tried to limit Him too much to some type of a cage or a box that restricts our really understanding what we have in this invisible realm. So whether you want to call it the resources of the universe, the invisible field, or God, I call it God, it is what we connect to with our 6th sense. And yes, it is, as it says, are there other names for this sense? Yes, it might be called your subconscious, your intuition, your spirit, your soul, and your true self, to share names that I'm familiar with. And there are probably many more. What types of things are in this invisible realm that we can tap with our 6th sense? All knowledge, creativity, and energy for starters. Within that energy is the breath of life that begins our journey on earth, and it sustains us throughout its duration. I'm not talking about the air we breathe, I'm talking about the fact that without anything we do with our 5 physical senses, we're alive and well at any given moment in spite of every conceivable illness or disaster that could snuff out that life. I like the scripture on this one. In God, or this realm, we live and move and have our being. When people read my book, so many of them say, but I don't have any of these 6th sense experiences. I can't identify with this. We'll talk about some of these 6th sense experiences in a minute, and you do have many of them. But just beginning with the very one, if you look at yourself and you wonder, how in the world am I staying alive? Think about that. How are you doing it? You're not doing it. There's not a thing that you can do like cooking your meal and making your bed that will keep you alive. And you can't just breathe either, because they can breathe for you on a breathing machine when you're already dead and you're still not alive. You're just being breathed for with oxygen. The breath of life, folks, is your first connection with the invisible realm. It's absolutely intangible. You cannot put any type of a restriction on this. And every one of us moving, living, and walking have the breath of life within us. And until we stop moving and being and living, that is our invisible source totally with us. You cannot be disconnected from that. At some point in your life, either you will choose to be disconnected or our Creator will disconnect us. But in the meantime, as long as you have the breath of life, you are experiencing a 6th sense connection. And I would like to I can't express how important that is. I had very many what we call paranormal, psychic, or 6th sense experiences in my book. They were pretty overwhelming. At first I wasn't quite sure what to do with them. Then I began to realize, without a doubt, that I was connected to the God that I had been looking for all the time in religion and had never really been able to feel connected to Him. For all various reasons why I couldn't feel connected. Once I felt connected, I had cancer. I was in the hospital. I was 31 years old. I had 3 little kids, and I thought I was going to die. And at that point, I said, God, I can't live or die unless I know you love me. I was so confused with when am I right and when am I wrong with all of the different parameters of the religion that I was in. And I had the most incredible experience that day in the hospital. It was, at first, it was my first one, so I wasn't quite sure what to make of it. But a light came through the window, and I was just sitting on my bed, and I was cold, and I was afraid, and a light came through the window, just kind of like those sunbeams that seem to be coming down from the clouds. Sometimes you just sort of see rays of sun coming down, and it literally felt like it came through the window, totally surrounded me in my bed, and I was warm, and I was totally at peace. I had never felt anything like that in my life. And I knew that if I died then, they hadn't told me yet if I was going to live after the cancer surgery. But I felt such a peace that just absolutely turned everything around. And I knew something had happened, okay? And many times after that, I still continued to choose chaos and stress because I didn't trust that peace. It was so different from anything I was ever used to, where I feared and worried and stressed and did this all the time, that even though it was wonderful, it put me immediately in conflict with my husband, who was a minister in that church. And this was in contradiction to many of the things that they told us we needed to do to be connected to God and to stay connected to God. And I knew that I didn't do everything right, not according to anybody's standards. Yet I knew that moment that I was loved. So this is a sixth sense experience that's kind of like more dramatic. But if you look through your own experiences every day, things that happen that you really didn't make happen, you can kind of think they're all just coincidences if you want to, or you can think of them as wonderful reminders that you're connected to this invisible source. And again, in this invisible source, three things that come from it, that just for starters, all knowledge, because nobody who ever invented anything or thought up anything or studied anything ever made the knowledge. They just did what? They tapped it. They brought it into their organism, and they worked with it. But the knowledge is independent of anything any of us can do. So therefore, what I'm saying to you when you say, I have this problem, you don't have to call it God, you don't have to call it anything. Just throw it out there. I have this problem, I want to solve it, I don't want these negative feelings. Then you begin immediately to put the universe to work to bring in the solutions that you're looking for. So you can try it all scientifically with just all mental workings, but I think you will find that whatever you want to call it, if you believe in this source of knowledge, energy, and creativity that is beyond you, and just ask for it. Again, this is in all good concepts in religion as well. But many of us are so against religion, we can't pick anything good out of religion. And many of us are so in religion, we can't pick anything good out of science or out of these other philosophies. When you're free to become an objective problem solver, take good ideas from everywhere you find them, then you can solve any problem.